and how true crime isn't pretty and this isn't a big deal. It's a big deal whenever it's a freaking child. It's a big deal whenever it's a child.
Do this is because they just have nothing to lose. They just have nothing to lose, so they don't care.
I feel like this just compounds the family's grief exponentially.
His loved one that was brutally taken from them had their very personal and private information involving this case be taken from random YouTubers online and then put behind a paywall, that information including photos of the poor boy's autopsy.
A quick update. I know a lot of people are talking about the Zav Girl and the Natasha Cooper situation, so I just really kind of wanted to give my own thoughts on this. Also, sorry if the audio clip saying Garen is a bit weird. I said it wrong and then I tried to correct it. Overall, it kind of sounded a little bit weird, so I hope you guys can forgive me on that. Anyway, let's just begin. Look guys, I really wanted to do like a video Googling myself, but unfortunately now that I've known about this topic, it seems like I'm gonna halt that for now. As you can already tell by the title and the thumbnail, I'm obviously gonna be talking about Zav Girl and Natasha Cooper. What they did was really, really disgusting. I don't have any words to describe this. Why am I talking about two YouTubers, you ask? It's because they were talking about this 11-year-old kid named Gan Stuash, who unfortunately had his life cut short by his own stepmother, Letitia Stouch. So Zav Girl and Natasha put a freedom of information request to see Gannon's autopsy pictures, and once they got that, they put the photos on Patreon behind a paywall, just so they could get money out of Gannon's autopsy. I don't care what anyone says, that is a completely disgusting and immoral act to do. Profiting off the loss of somebody just for your own personal gain, that is downright evil. I use the term evil rarely, and seeing what they did, just completely disgusting and evil. And I'm going to be diving into the apologies next, since they're just so bad.
Everyone, if you're listening to this, then you likely know about the last few days.
Maybe it's just me, but why does this apology sound so robotic? It's creeping me out.
I want to apologize to everyone I've hurt, but especially Gannon's family. I've been doing some major soul searching and reflecting. There are many trying to define my motivations, and while I'm not looking for forgiveness or trying to make excuses, I do hope to provide additional context that has not been made clear. I have followed the Letitia Stout case closely, and it was actually during the trial that I made the official records request.
You're saying that you're not going to bring any excuses, but meanwhile you're just saying an excuse. What is wrong with you?
And it was in El Paso County, Colorado. I requested all the video, audio, and written records. I made no request for autopsy photos. I wanted all trial records, but my main interests were interviews with Letitia. The autopsy photos just happened to be in the files.
Maybe, and this is just me spitballing here, delete the autopsy files, or at the very, very least, don't post them on something like Patreon.
I spent time reviewing what I received so I could provide more info from the trial. I believe many of my images were already shown during the televised trial, and I saw the photos on other public YouTube channels that live streamed the trial and shared the evidence. I didn't think any of the images were new. These photos were already public, although the video I put together with the coroner's voice was my own creation. I chose to put the video on Patreon because of the sensitive nature of the evidence. Putting the evidence behind a paywall meant added security.
Just because Patreon requires money doesn't mean it's still not public. Anyone that pays is gonna see this. And if it's something like Patreon, then that means that's even worse, because you are just profiting off of somebody's death just for your own gain. Just for some autopsy files.
And I naively thought they wouldn't be made public. The video I created with a voice from the coroner wasn't meant to be shared outside of Patreon, and I chose not to put the photos on YouTube, a public forum, where the views would have allowed me to make more money, and the photos would be seen by more people. Because the video was placed behind a paywall, rumors about the images not being blurred or being different than what was shown in trial started to surface. No photos shows. I have made no jokes about the photos. I don't even cuss on my channel, and I would never allow derogatory remarks about a victim.
Just because you didn't say anything derogatory to the victim doesn't mean that what you did still is just okay. It's not okay.
I realized my intentions were not communicated well. My channel style is sort of me hanging out with friends and speaking off the cuff, and I did not articulate my reasons or think my decision through. At this time, my Patreon website has been shut down. I am not sharing any of the photos or video anywhere. Although you can see the photos published on other popular channels, nothing you see is from me, nor will ever be. To those who have supported me and followed my channel, and to the true crime community, I'm sorry I let you down. I cannot imagine the pain Gannon's family has gone through. My anger over what happened to Gannon is the reason I started following the case. I'm not this evil, heartless person like many are saying, but I'm also doing a lot of self-reflecting.
There it is. That's gotta be one of the worst apologies I've ever heard in my entire life.
And I'm looking into sensitivity training. I did not want to add to the family's loss with anything I said or shared about this case. And it will be a long time before I ever trust myself or my decisions again. To Gannon's family, I have no words that can make this better. No one should have to ever go through what you guys have been through.
Yeah, and you made things worse by putting it on a Patreon.
I am so very sorry for any pain that I have caused you.
If you thought that was one of the worst apologies you've ever heard, well then, you fool! Zav Girl didn't even delete any video regarding Gannon and his death. She didn't delete that. It's still up on YouTube. You can go ahead and check up her channel. And by the time that I'm recording this, it's still up. It's still there. So yeah, it seems like she didn't actually regret it. It actually gets much worse than that. Now let me introduce you to another person. This community post is now deleted, so credit to Tamimi for the screenshots. The reality of this situation is that different people feel differently about this. Some people genuinely think making a video including the autopsy photos is bad, and I respect their opinion and feelings. Other people, like myself, think that the autopsy pictures in the coroner, discussing/explaining them as interesting and informative, are able to view it in a more scientific, detached way. It's just one of those things where it depends on the person. It's not scientific detached, it's just gross. I am not adamantly against taking down the video if people are truly unhappy with it, and I will absolutely consider doing that, but right now, it seems like there are a lot of other people who are acting in bad faith and creating lies for fun and excitement in order to pit others against me. If you heard the latest rumor that I've been distributing pictures of Gannon, I assured you I have not, and his isn't visible of any of the autopsy photos and the autopsy/coroner videos. So it's a bit difficult to sort what's what. Well, there are other creators that have the same autopsy photos right here on YouTube for public viewing on their channel where everyone could stumble across them, where they're not being attacked as I am. Right now, it becomes obvious that some of this hate I'm receiving is not genuine and is being done for other reasons. YouTube drama gets clicks. No, it's not because of YouTube drama. It's just because you sold a dead child's autopsy pictures. That is disgusting, okay? I understand some of you have issues with me charging money on my Patreon for the video. If I was charging money for the autopsy files alone or something like that, I think I see your point. But in this case, I spent a lot of time and worked hard putting together a video, lining up the coroner's audio to try and make it as informative as possible for the viewer. That is what I am charging for, which I hope you can agree is understandable. No, it's not. Anyway, thank you to those who have reached out to me with your take on it in a respectful way, who understand this is simply a bit of a gray area as to what is socially acceptable and what isn't. I'm pretty sure most people can agree that this isn't acceptable. Like I said, I'm not against removing the video and I care what you think, but it's hard to make sense of it all when I'm getting some very seriously unhinged threats being made against myself and my loved ones, and those threats coming from those who claim that I'm doing something morally objectable. For the record here, don't go ahead and send threats to anybody, but that doesn't mean that you should silence all forms of criticism. For those of you who are willing to discuss this rationally and want to communicate your thoughts, please comment on this post as I might not see it anywhere else. After I deal with the threats, I will come back and read everything here so I can get an idea of the best way to proceed based on all your input. Thank you guys, Zav. Anyway, next topic. Natasha did an entire live stream that is over 1 hour long. I'm not going to be playing the rest of it because I don't want it to be like an entire movie, but I'm going to play a few parts. A few key parts.
Why weren't they sealed? Why weren't the autopsy files sealed? If the prosecutor knew that these photos were this bad, they knew that people were going to get them. They knew that people were going to get them. Why weren't they sealed? Why didn't the prosecution make sure that they were sealed? Because the Watts children's autopsies were sealed. There is zero reason that Gannon's couldn't have been also.
Just because the autopsy files weren't sealed doesn't mean that what you did in any way was right. That's like me telling the graveyard inspector that maybe if it wasn't in the dirt, then no one would have to come dig it up and steal it. That's exactly what you're doing here.
I have done missing children in all 50 states. And I'm still doing it. I'm doing it again. Because they need people to know that they're missing. It's no different than the same thing that I did for Gannon. And anybody who thinks that I disrespected Gannon by doing these discussions, that is your opinion.
So in a way, when Natasha is saying that, she doesn't care. If your child is dead, she doesn't care. She'll just use your child's autopsy for her own personal gain. You can't justify this. This is just sick. It is wrong. The difference between missing children and the autopsy is that Gannon's case already had a lot of evidence. And for you to just steal someone's autopsy instead of like deleting it, you just share it with the entire world without the family's consent? I don't care. I don't care what you have to say. Go ahead. Say your stupid excuses. Look, as awful as Zav Girl is, at the very least she said that she was sorry. Natasha didn't apologize at all. Natasha instead just tried to play the victim. Natasha Cooper sent in autopsy pictures of Gannon's body again and put it on Patreon again. I can't imagine what Gannon's family feels after this. Natasha playing the victim card to avoid controversy. Natasha constantly making excuses for what she did. Her and Zav Girl are evil and despicable. And my heart goes out to the families of Gannon. Repost. Gannon, you watch crime scene and autopsy photos. Since I made the decision to only show these photos on Patreon, I have now been inducted with criticism and disdain. It amazes me how people who are allegedly interested in true crime and other true crime creators are making out like Zav Girl and I committed a mortal sin. Anyone who follows true crime knows that true crime isn't pretty. There is always a victim or victims, and there are always families of those victims. Crime scene photos and autopsy photos are part of the crime. It shows the extent of the injuries and gives better understanding of what the victim went through to those who find it hard to comprehend. Nothing about true crime is pretty or nice. Nothing about what happened to the victims is pleasant for the families. I've never been disrespectful to any victim I've covered in their case. I have and always will be respectful of the dead, whether they are a crime victim or not. Life isn't all rainbows and lollipops. It's ugly, dark, and downright disgusting at times. Bringing light to the extent of Gannon's injuries might help prevent another child from suffering the same fate. Who are any of you to judge the decisions I make? What moral authority do you have to judge anyone else's choices? Are you perfect? Are you God? I think not. I put the pictures in a live behind a paywall for a reason, so that only those who choose to view them could. In no way was I disrespectful. I showed very few photos last night because my internet was being wonky, but what I did show was done respectfully, and the chat was never anything but respectful, except toward Letitia. I reminded them several times that this was about the horrific death of an 11-year-old boy. I never showed his I would never. Every full body or any other photo that shows him below the waist, I've cropped. No photos have been defiled. No one was speaking inappropriately about his nether regions. Whoever said that and those who repeated it without facts are liars. I'm doing part 2 of this episode tonight on Patreon. For those who are saying I'm profiting off his pictures, the $18 that I made from the 6 people who became $3 members, I'll gladly donate to a charity. It wasn't about the money, it was about controlling the situation so that they were presented in a respectful and educational way. Those who don't agree, I don't care. For those saying, what if it was your child? I would hope that if something happened to one of my children, and they're the victim of a horrific crime, that there are people out there who cover true crime, like I do, and put as many eyes and ears on their cases as they can in order to help others from becoming victims, raise awareness of the crime, make sure that the horrific circumstances are never forgotten. To those who joined Patreon out of a genuine interest in the case, thank you, and I appreciate your support. For those that joined just to get the link to report it, thank you. Your contribution is appreciated. Talk about me, go live about me, write CPs about me, report me, get my channel taken down all you want. None of that has one thing to do with Gannon. Your situational outrage is as ridiculous as those of you lamenting about it. I can assure you that I sleep just fine at night and will still be covering true crime cases in the entirety long after I've forgotten that any of you exist. I do not need your validation, nor do I need your approval. I certainly don't need your self-righteous pearl clutching. Instead of clutching those pearls, put on some boots or a pair of wedges and get off YouTube and live a little. Until then, bless your hearts. Look, I get it. People make mistakes. People are not perfect. However, I'm pretty sure most people, aka Norval people, wouldn't go so far as to leak a dead child's autopsy. Go ahead, use the, oh, it's not secure enough excuse. Because whatever you say, it's not justified for the actions that you did. And another thing, just screams, oh yeah, I really don't need your self-righteous talk, because I already have a lot of money, so I really don't care. Also, don't use it's for true crime as an excuse, because as someone that does like true crime, myself, I don't think you need to go to this level. I don't think you need to go to these heights. And no, this is not an opinion, this is fact. And because of Natasha and Zav Girl, Gannon's father, Al, he was re-traumatized. It's like in the trial. They don't even care. They just want money. They don't actually care. Words can't even come close to describing how angry I am. Knowing that there are awful people out there, that they don't even care, and they use excuses and they play the victim and everything. I'm gonna let Al finish it off.
Traumatizing. It's hard to, we just finished the trial just over 2 months ago, Brian, and now we're having to kind of relive some of this stuff and not being able to put it behind us.
Yeah, and I think for me, like, what really pushed it over the edge was the charging the money. I mean, obviously posting it alone would be disgusting, but then charging money to see those photos, it's really, really just awful.
The word I use to describe it is evil, Brian. In my opinion, it's just evil. Like the world got enough information from the trial to have every discussion they want to have. Why do we need to go have a freedom of information request and pay for this kind of information and then dishonor my son by putting these photos out there like that? I mean, the world got to see it. I don't know how well you followed it, but the only day I chose not to come to the trial was the day that they showed the autopsy photos. Now I feel like I can't even go on YouTube without the possibility of accidentally coming across these photos.
Hopefully justice can be served to Al once again, and to Dannon too. Anyway, see ya.